Kia ora and welcome to this edition of Forced Closure and Your Employer Obligations, Entitlements, Pay and Ending Employment. My name is Tammy Lee Holmes and I'm the Director at Gold Digger, the People Powerhouse, an HR and recruitment firm based in the Bay of Plenty. We operate across the North and South Island with approximately 50 businesses that we work for across varying industries. What we hope to do today is to provide some advice about what you need to do now as a non-essential business that has been forced to close due to COVID-19. Now that you've been told to close, there are certain things that you need to sort out. At least at this stage, we now have some clear indication on what you are and aren't allowed to do, and it can give you a baseboard to start making your next steps from. As a non-essential service, what we advise you do now is understand your business financial position, really spend some time looking at it, and speak to your bank or financial advisors if you need to. They are essential services and will be available during this time. We suggest you apply for government assistance if you haven't done so already to help you pay for your employees over the time where they won't be producing, if this is something that is applicable to your business. Definitely plan for the future as well. Think about staff that you are going to need going forward when we get to some sort of normal situation again in the future. It's a tricky situation when you've got to pay staff and essentially your business is closed and either not operating at all or operating in a skeleton or part-time capacity. There are certain things that you really need to understand about pay. First of all, do not stop paying your staff. It isn't their fault that they can't be at work at the moment, and we need to explore some other options before we get to this stage. You need to communicate with your staff about your position as a company and how you will try and make up their wages or salary in the time that they are off or in the time that they are in an extended quarantine period outside of the 4 weeks that we are currently looking at. What we need to do is look at options that maintain keeping your staff on board without having to let them go first. Look at things like using up leave entitlements. Do your employees have sick leave and annual leave that they can use first? And then possibly also look at unpaid leave. These are options. What you must understand though is that you must consult with your staff where there are any proposed changes to pay, and they must understand how pay is going to work over this next period. Keep those lines of communication open. Working from home is pretty tricky, and I can actually talk to this one from experience. I have children myself and have also relocated to work from the home office. It can be quite tough. There's a whole nother session on talking about how you survive that. But let's think about this from an employer perspective. You may have staff working at home that are not able to quite do 100% of their daily duties that they normally would if they were in the office. They may also have the added complexity of having other family members at home and possibly children or flatmates as well. So let's get down to business. Set very clear expectations with your staff. What do you expect from them in a working from home capacity? What do you expect their productivity to be, and what work have you got outlined for them whilst they're working from home? How will you communicate, etc.? Keep in regular communication with your staff. Maybe let's not let that be just by email as well. Consider other methods such as picking up the phone, using Zoom, Skype or other methods just so that you can keep face to face. It's really important for you as an employer to keep face with your employees. It's also important for everybody's mental health to see other people sometimes. So do that. If you think you need to, have a sign in and sign out time. That can be quite simple as getting them to send an email when they're signing in and one when they're signing out. Do keep some humour if you can. It's kind of important to keep the morale up during times like this. Think of ways as a company you can interact with each other with something that's a little bit light-hearted. Accept that your employees need to have breaks as well, and they may have children at home. It is a very, very unprecedented and Very stressful time for everybody, so it's about having a little bit of compassion as well, whilst we know you may be struggling as an employer too. Okay, let's go there. When continuing employment looks bleak and you just don't think you can continue employing your staff. As an employer, you've made it a commitment to your employees when you've taken them on board. So, before you start looking at extreme measures such as restructuring and disestablishing roles, you really need to look at what other options you have available to you first. First of all, I suggest you look at across the board on what contracts your staff are on. Your casual employees and your contractors should essentially be the first to go, as you have a permanent ongoing commitment to any part-time and full-time permanent staff. Look at other options. Try and start thinking outside the box of how you can maintain these people because you may need them in the future. Have you negotiated reduced hours? This is a simple conversation that can be had with your staff and followed up by formalising some documentation. You may look to reduce their hours by a day a week, or you may look to reduce their hours each day as you navigate working from home. Have you offered leave without pay? This means that you could maintain your employees on board probably after they have used their annual leave and sick leave entitlements, but it means for them that they have got the option of coming back to you later on and you don't have to take them off your books. If worst comes to worst and you need to look at restructuring or disestablishing roles, you must get this right or you could open yourself up for potentially unjustified dismissals. There are really two key things that you must get right if you are looking at a process such as this. We are aware that there are currently employers who are saying to employees, there is simply no work for you anymore, and letting them go without consulting. It's an absolute no-no. Please make sure you get it right and definitely seek advice, specifically getting your documents checked over and talking about your process. First of all, redundancy must be justified. We understand it is easier in this current economic climate and the struggles that we are facing as employers, that redundancy may seem quite obvious. Whilst it may seem obvious, you must go through the process with your employees so they understand why your business is unable to maintain employment for them ongoing. Secondly, you must follow a good faith process of consultation with your employees. We'll talk about what that process looks like in just a moment. Your process is set out in several steps, and it's really important that you get these right. First of all, you actually need to let your employees know that you are considering a restructure and what that actually looks like. We suggest you invite them to a meeting with you by a letter, and you need to include some specific things in that letter, such as they are able to bring a support person or representative with them. It's important that you also remind them throughout the process that they are able to have a support person or representative with them. This is a really stressful time for your employees and probably for you as well. You need to provide a proposal with all of the supporting information that is going to help you make your decision so that your employee can understand this. It also needs to provide the background information as to why you are having to do this. You would normally provide this proposal to your employee at a meeting where you can also immediately respond to some of their feedback that they have at the time. If you are looking at disestablishing or restructuring more than one role, and there are not all employees affected, you will need to actually include a selection criteria and allow your employees to make comment on that selection criteria if this is relevant. It is important that there is a fair process when you are considering which roles or which people may go. You need to give your employees time to consider your feedback, to consider it and to provide you some feedback. You also genuinely need to consider this feedback. You need to take some time to do this, and you also need to respond to any questions or feedback that employees may have. This is where your time frames may not work out as expected because you do need to spend this time in the feedback process. That is really, really important. Finally, after you have made your decision and you have responded to feedback, you need to communicate your decision to the people who are impacted. When you communicate your decision, again, this should be formally as well, and in person, and in letter. And you also need to outline what this means going forward in terms of their final pay and working out any notice, etc., etc. As always, there are other options and ways of looking at potentially ending employment or changing your employees' working situations. A temporary variation to agreement is quite common and might be looking at things such as reduced hours or a change of duties for a period of time, perhaps moving into a different role within the business whilst you navigate the experience we are currently having. You may look to redeploy your staff into other teams that are still busy, which might mean a change in location, or it might mean a change in duties or a change of job for a period of time. Force majeure and frustration are also other options, but I won't go into detail with these because they are really options that you need to discuss with somebody such as an HR consultant or a lawyer, because this is very, very dependent on what your employment agreement says and what your current business position is. Whilst this has been a really brief overview of how you may navigate some of your staffing situations through the current situation that we have with COVID-19, we hope that there have been some tidbits of information that have given you some guidance. If you would like extra advice, of course, we are available. We are working remotely, so essentially business as usual. We are available on info@golddigger.co.nz, or you can check out our website www.golddigger.co.nz, and available by phone 07393 24 24